Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And to be clear, I'm not going to ask any questions of this witness because this witness has revealed that she has no intentions of answering questions. But instead, I'm going to ask some very basic questions really quickly of my colleague, Becca Ballant, if she will answer right or wrong, raping children.
Wrong.
Right or wrong, killing random citizens.
Definitely wrong.
Right or wrong, enriching yourself as the sitting president of the United States.
Definitely wrong.
Okay, thank you, because I probably never would have got that with our witness. Our witness who somehow is a lawyer but does not understand how it works with witnesses. I'm not really sure what law school she went to and what all kind of cases she tried, but typically when you come into a space and somebody's a witness, then they sit there and they answer questions instead of asking questions. And then we also have this objection that we use as lawyers called non-responsive when a witness fails to actually answer the question. But nevertheless, let me address the survivors because that's exactly who they are. They are not victims, they are survivors. Let me say thank you for having more courage and moral clarity in your pinky fingers than the entire Department of Justice. We are currently the laughing stock of the world, partially because of the failed leadership within the DOJ as we see kings and queens falling everywhere around the world. But we don't know the basics of right and wrong in this country because it's not about partisanship. And that's why I applaud Thomas Massie, because he's the only person on the Republican side that has a backbone and knows how to stand up to corruption. But nevertheless, let me keep going. My Democratic colleagues have been attacked this entire committee hearing. They have been lied on. And frankly, the American people weren't looking for that. They were looking for answers about the corruption that they see coming from this administration. In the written testimony of this witness, of this particular witness, she stated that when she took office, she had two main goals. The first was to end the weaponization of justice, and second, to return the department to its core mission. Not only have you lied about both, you've intentionally done the exact opposite. You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting journalists than you are prosecuting pedophiles and creeps. In fact, your boss, the President of the United States, stated that this administration, quote, took the freedom of speech away. And at your direction, DOJ has arrested Don Lemon and Georgia Fort. And I might add that y'all actually had a judge that rejected y'all for trying to arrest Don Lemon before, just like the grand jury rejected y'all as it relates to Senator Kelly, just like a grand jury rejected y'all as it relates to Senator Slotkin, just like the case against Tish James was dismissed and the case against Mr. Comey was dismissed. I completely don't get how it is that you're sitting at the top of DOJ because you don't seem to be good at your job. You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting these journalists. In fact, we know after Georgia Fort and Don Lemon were arrested, we know that there were homes of journalists that were raided. We know that threatened prosecution against students protesting your actions and forced tech companies to remove apps used to track ISIS activities. But let's circle back to you protecting pedophiles and creeps, because I want to talk about the president and his possible involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I don't know what the president might have done with Jeffrey Epstein, but unlike this administration, I believe that facts matter, so let's talk about the facts. Fact number one, Donald Trump is one of the most named people in the Epstein files. At least 5,000 files contains more than 38,000 references to Trump, his wife, or Mar-a-Lago. Fact number two, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell made young girls available to Trump on multiple occasions. For example, according to this file, Ghislaine Maxwell presented a young girl to President Trump who spent more than 20 minutes apparently flirting with her. Here's another example. This shows notes from FBI investigators that describe Jeffrey Epstein transporting a victim to Mar-a-Lago to meet with President Trump, where he bragged to Trump that, quote, this is a good one. Now, I'm not saying that the president is a pedophile, but there is a lot of evidence in these files that suggests that he's very close friends with a lot of men who are pedophiles. What's crazy about all of this is just that this is a big cover-up. And this administration is engaged in it. In fact, this administration is complicit. But there are numerous others, like how the DOJ is attempting to obstruct justice in the investigation of the rogue agents who have murdered American citizens, or how the DOJ seized voter data from Fulton County in an attempt to steal the 2026 midterm elections, or how federal agents have Tom Homan on tape accepting a bribe and your agency killed the investigation, or how your agency is ready to give the president a $230 million payday, which is unconstitutional. The Constitution is clear. The president shall not receive any payment except his salary while in office. The fact fact of the matter is that you will be remembered as one of the worst attorney generals in history. An attorney general who has prioritized obstruction over justice, corruption over the law.
Good evening and welcome back. Tonight, a fiery congressional hearing is drawing widespread attention after a tense and highly emotional exchange unfolded between lawmakers and a Department of Justice witness during a House committee session. The moment came when a Democratic Congresswoman took the floor and delivered a sharp critique of the Justice Department's leadership, accusing officials of avoiding direct answers and failing to address key concerns raised during the hearing. Rather than continuing to question the witness directly, the Congresswoman announced that she would instead ask a series of simple questions to one of her colleagues on the committee. Those questions focused on basic moral principles. She asked whether acts such as harming children, killing innocent civilians, or enriching oneself while serving as president were right or wrong. Her colleague responded quickly to each question, calling them clearly wrong. The Congresswoman then used that exchange to highlight what she described as frustration with the witness's earlier testimony, arguing that the witness had not been willing to give clear answers during questioning. She also criticized the witness's approach to the hearing itself, saying that in congressional proceedings, witnesses are expected to answer questions rather than redirect them. The Congresswoman referenced legal terminology often used in courtrooms, including the concept of a non-responsive answer, which occurs when a witness avoids directly answering the question that was asked. But beyond procedural complaints, the lawmaker's remarks quickly broadened to address what she described as larger concerns about the direction of the Department of Justice. She then shifted her focus to individuals who had previously testified before the committee, referring to them not as victims but as survivors. In an emotional portion of her remarks, she praised them for what she described as their courage and willingness to speak out, saying they demonstrated moral clarity in the face of difficult circumstances. The Congresswoman also criticized the leadership of the Justice Department more broadly, claiming that the agency's actions have damaged the United States' credibility internationally. According to her comments during the hearing, she believes the department has failed to demonstrate clear standards of accountability at a time when political tensions and public scrutiny are already high. She also pointed to divisions within Congress itself, mentioning that one Republican lawmaker had shown what she described as the willingness to challenge corruption regardless of party affiliation. From there, the speech moved into a broader political critique. The Congresswoman argued that the hearing had included attacks against Democratic members of the committee and accusations she said were misleading or inaccurate. She said the American public was not interested in partisan conflict, but instead wanted clear answers about allegations of corruption and misconduct within government institutions. The lawmaker then referenced written testimony submitted earlier by the Justice Department witness. In that testimony, the witness reportedly stated that two of her primary goals upon taking office were to end the politicization of the justice system and to return the department to what she described as its core mission. However, the Congresswoman strongly disagreed with that characterization. She argued that the department's recent actions have done the opposite, accusing officials of prioritizing politically charged investigations and arrests rather than focusing resources on serious criminal cases. The Congresswoman also referenced several high-profile legal disputes involving journalists and public officials, arguing that some cases pursued by federal authorities had been rejected or dismissed by courts and grand juries. Those developments, she said, raised questions about the department's priorities and the use of taxpayer resources. Another major topic raised during her remarks involved allegations connected to the late financier Jeffrey Epstein. The Congresswoman referenced documents often referred to as the Epstein files, which contain records from investigations into Epstein's activities and associations with prominent individuals. She claimed that certain documents mention former President Donald Trump and locations associated with him, although she stopped short of making direct accusations about criminal conduct. Instead, she argued that the existence of those references raises questions that deserve further investigation. At the same time, it's important to note that references in investigative documents do not necessarily indicate wrongdoing, and many individuals mentioned in the Epstein files have denied any involvement in illegal activity. The Congresswoman framed the issue as part of what she described as a larger concern about transparency and accountability within federal investigations. She went on to raise several additional allegations involving the Justice Department, including claims of political interference in investigations, concerns about federal law enforcement actions, and accusations of misuse of government authority. Those claims remain highly contested and have not been fully resolved in court. Still, the speech reflected growing political tensions in Washington as lawmakers from both parties continued to debate the role of federal agencies, the independence of the Justice Department, and the limits of executive power. In the closing moments of her remarks, the Congresswoman delivered a sharp criticism of the department's leadership, saying history would ultimately judge the decisions being made today. She argued that the Justice Department must remain loyal not to any individual leader or political party, but to the Constitution and the rule of law. The hearing ended shortly afterwards, but clips of the exchange quickly spread across social media platforms, where the debate has continued among viewers, commentators, and political analysts. Supporters of the Congresswoman say she raised important questions about accountability and government transparency. Critics, however, argue that some of the claims presented during the hearing require stronger evidence and caution against drawing conclusions before investigations are complete. What is clear is that the moment has added fuel to an already heated national conversation about justice, political power, and the role of federal institutions. And as investigations and congressional hearings continue, these debates are likely to remain at the center of American politics. For now, that's the latest from Washington. Stay with us for more updates and continuing coverage from World Pulse News.